Well, hello once again. For the next 13 days here in Arkansas, the temperature range is going to be from 50 degrees to 66. So I got 13 days to finish up the rear end of this car and get it back on the tires, get it down so we can move to the front. And I think what we're going to do is first start out with this dash pot. I want to get this nut off this shaft. Now I could just go ahead and leave it like that on there and just kind of knock it all down with a wire brush and everything. I put a pair of vice grips on it and I kind of dug in a little bit. I shouldn't have done that, but I thought I'd be able to break it loose, but it's not broken loose. So what we're doing is we're soaking it in liquid wrench, and then I'll use some cloth to wrap around it next time when I grab it with vice grips and try to get that nut off. Well, she finally came off. It was no problem at all, actually. I just tapped on the nut a little bit. I laid the nut against a piece of flat metal I got out there in the carport that I use for various things. It's kind of a magnetic kind of thing. I just tapped on it and kept rotating the entire thing around. Tap, tap, tap. Brought it in the shop. Put the half-inch socket back on it, and she popped right loose. Now, why did I have to do this? Because this thing came off of a two-barrel Autolite carburetor. And it'll be going back on a 4-barrel, and I may need to adjust it. I don't know. I might have to go in a couple threads, go out a couple threads. So I had to be able to get it to do that. Now, in the center of the bracket here, here's the way she sets up. So you've got threads right there. This bracket threads onto there, and then the lock nut goes on behind it and locks it in place. That's the way that works. So what we're going to do now, I'm going to be soaking this in the vinegar. You can bet on that. We'll put it in a small container. I'm not going to throw it in a big container, I don't think. The next thing we have to do is get this spring off of here, which is really not a problem. The top part of the spring fits. Let me see if I can zoom in a little closer for you. The top part of the spring fits into a little groove right down in there, okay? I don't know if you can make that out or not. Put the light over here. Anyway, the top part of the there's a groove there, and the top coil of the spring is very small and it fits into that groove. Can you make that out right there? Yeah, right there. So what I got to do is get it up out of that groove, and then this entire spring will pop out. And while Brendan is watching this, I'm sure his butt's already beginning to bite holes in the seat. That's okay. Don't worry. We're going to take very good care of this, and then we'll start cleaning it up a little bit. You know, some of you may say, well, what is this stupid thing? What does it do? Well, I'll tell you what it does. I'm going to give it to you in a nutshell. If you are driving along with an automatic transmission and you let up, you know, all of a sudden you have to hit the brake, or you decide to stop at a red light real quick, or a stop sign, whatever, you take your foot off the gas pedal, and the carburetor linkage goes like that on the side of the carburetor. And now keep in mind, the gas is still flooding, is still pouring down into that 4-barrel carburetor, or 2-barrel, or whatever it may be. And the engine is at a pretty good high RPM to burn that gas away. Well, all of a sudden, you know, bam, it goes like that. And you shut off the RPMs of the engine, and the gas is still down in there. It needs to be burned away. Well, what this does, when the throttle comes down like this, it hits this dash pot. And this dash pot is a diaphragm inside here. It doesn't let the linkage go bam like that and then just let the engine choke up and quit, because it's got too much gas down in there and the RPM of the engine is not high enough. So what this does here is it slows the engine down slowly, okay, and gives a chance for the gas to burn away. That's all. Now with a standard shift, no problem. You don't have to worry about it. But with an automatic transmission, you want that slow decrease in engine speed, so it gives a chance for the gas to burn off so it doesn't flood out and choke. You look awful dumb going downtown. Every time you hit the brake, the engine chokes out and quits. Well, we're not going to let that happen to Perline. Well, that's it, kind of in a nutshell. I mean, if you want to know more about it, just research dash pot on the internet. It'll tell you a little bit more. Okay? Oh, by the way, you know, I asked a question to Brendan one day. We were looking for a dash pot, looking for it. And I said, you know, I remember, you know, back in the 60s, these dashpots were pretty much all the same. I mean, they didn't have, you know, they had General Motors dashpots, they had Chrysler, they had Ford and whatever. I said, you know, if worst comes to worst, we ought to be able to use one of those others for this. And, you know, he kind of said, yeah, that's right. You know, we'd probably be able to get one that would work and make it work. The only problem was the bracket, the mounting bracket. I didn't have one of those. And, but, you know, if worst came to worst, we could have used one off of an Oldsmobile or a Buick or something like that. And, you know, screw it in and out until we got it the way we wanted it. You know, the spring tension might have been a little tougher, but at least we would have kept the engine from stalling every time we hit the brake. The spring is off, no problem really. You just got to, you know, really go slow, take your time and finesse it off. You don't want to break the spring. There's the smaller hole on the top, so it'll fit in this groove. If need be, I can squeeze that thing together just a little bit more so it'll fit real good in case it got loose in the process of taking it off. Underneath it was this rubber thing that fits over the top like that. So that's come off. I'll wire brush that with a small wire brush. This one right here, actually, this little brass brush I got, about the size of a toothbrush. And this here I can soak in, you know, derusting vinegar, no problem. But I can't soak this. I can't soak either end of it. Don't want to soak. Now I can soak the nut. So how do I get this clean? Well, I think again our little wire brush here will take care of this part and kind of clean the rest of it up here. But I think if I'm real careful, if I go nice and slow, I can take the wire brush that I use on the end of my rotary tool here and kind of go around it and get that off. And if I need be, I can put a little navel jelly on there too to take any residual rust off. We'll see what we can make this baby look like. The next time you see it, it'll be finished, and hopefully it'll look a whole lot better. Alright, what do you say we get out there and see what we can do about that second leaf spring? Well, here's our brand new bolt. Well, it's not new, it's old new. Came in, it had no rust on it at all. This is really nice. And it came out of a '64 Thunderbird, and you can see it has a nut on one, or a head on one end instead of a threaded rod, and on the other end is the nut. And I went out and bought a really tough lock washer for it. But here's what we had to do. We still had the same problem, you know, of keeping the bolt from pulling on through when I tightened up the nut. Same problem as we had with the other one. But this one here had the ridge. See, this one here has the ridge that the other one was missing. See, I get over here where you can see it a little better. See that ridge down there at the bottom? Well, that ridge originally hit against this right here, up against there, and the other ridge hit against here on the other end of the rod. But we drilled that hole out too big for the other bolt, so now the ridge was hitting, but man, it would have pulled on through with any kind of torque. So what we did was I took it in, talked to my buddy Joe the welder, and I explained to him what it was. We talked it over. He said, well, I think we know what we can do with that. What he did was he took a big old flat washer, the same diameter as the bolt, and he welded it on the inside. So now keep in mind, now the bolt will not go all the way in the thickness of that washer, which is not very thick at all. Anyway, this will go in like so, and now the ridge is hitting against that washer right there, which is welded in place. And on the other side, he welded another one, a thick spacer type. And now we can go ahead and put our lock washer on. It's going to be very strong. I'm not concerned at all now about this thing breaking or coming apart. It'll be very, very strong. Yeah, one of our commenters was concerned about it. You know, I was going to die in a wreck if I didn't get it. Okay, let's see if I can get that puppy on there. It doesn't want to cooperate, of course, but it will. Anyway, we'll go ahead and get that thing on there, and then there we go. And now we have our ridge hitting against there. We can go ahead and tighten it up, and it'll be just shy of being completely flush on the inside once we get it up in there. It'll be just shy, just a little bit, not much. It'll be even in a little bit further than that. But we'll have a very good hanger. But right now, I've got to put some primer paint on this thing and get it covered before it starts to rust. I'll tell you what, before I spray paint this, I might as well tell you about the U-bolts we got in. This was the original U-bolt. What a mess, huh? What a terrible mess. They were weak and rusted. You don't want to be using stuff like that. Now, they originally were flat on the top. Kind of neat. They pressed them around, but the new ones nowadays aren't like that. If you have U-bolts like this, you really don't, I mean, and you're taking the springs out or doing something, don't be putting them back in. Just, now that's what you call taking your life in your hands, okay? Reusing junk like this. But these are exactly the right size. They're perfect. They're 3 inches on the inside. They're 3 inches this way, and 8 inches from the bottom of the rod up to the inside of there. From my finger right there to there is 8 inches. This is on the 66 T-Bird, and it's 3 inches from inside to inside. And these are all the bolt nuts I'll have to paint also. We'll prime them up, give them a good, fairly decent coat of black paint, and when I get them back, when I get the axle back in the car and the bolts are holding it in, then I'll go ahead and spray it, give it one final spray, touch up, because there's bound to be a few nicks get hit here and there trying to lift that thing in. Alright, let's get going on the paint here. By the way, before you spray the U-bolts with primer, give them a good wipe down with either paint thinner or turpentine with a rag. Get them nice and really clean. Get them shiny looking like they are now. They were kind of dull when I showed them to you in the last segment. Now they're nice and shiny because when they arrive, they have a coating of some kind of stuff to keep them from rusting right away. So get that off of there. Then go ahead and lay on your old primer paint. Alright, she's all primed, and what we're going to do is we're going to let it set there until tomorrow. I'm going to let it dry all night. One more thing I wanted to show you, the nuts that that go on the bottom of these U-bolts, they're flanged serrated nuts. Well, now the flange you can see all the way around the outside. That's that circular thing all the way around. Now on the other side you have these little diggers that dig in, and they act as a lock washer. They will dig into that leaf spring bracket that has the rubber pad, and they will dig in and keep it from coming back out. That's called serrated flange nuts. Well, one half of the other leaf spring is up. I've got it connected to the rear. As soon as the hanger dries, I'll go ahead and hook it to this front edge here, or the front of the car. The problem is I had to go to the doctor the other day and have a large cyst cut out of my neck. It looked small on the top, but it was at least a centimeter deep and a centimeter wide, in diameter. And he had to chop pretty far to get it out of there, and he stitched it all up, and it's horizontal on my neck. And he says, I told him, I said, I need to get out there and get the rest of that spring up. He said, no, I don't want you crawling under the car for a few days and craning your neck up to look at things. He said, you'll break those stitches loose. And of course the wifey, she's like, no, you're not going back under that car until your neck is healed. I said, look, I'm not waiting 2 weeks. The doc wants me to wait 2 weeks for that thing before we take all the stitches out. So I told her, I said, I'll give it a couple of days of healing. It's sore and it hurts, but tough. That's the way it goes. But we're going to go ahead and get that back up. I don't know if I'm going to be able to do it tomorrow or not, but tomorrow the weather's going to be really nice, and I'm really hoping we can get it done. I would like to get that spring back up and wait a day or two, maybe even have to wait until the next video to put the actual housing back on. But we'll see. Tomorrow we'll close out the video one way or the other. But there is one other thing I can do. I don't have to crawl under the car to do this. This epoxy really did the job. Really solid. I'm real happy about that. So what we're going to do is put a little primer on there and let it dry overnight also. Might be a little bumpy in spots, but I smoothed it out the best I could. I waited till it was almost dry and then took my finger and kind of smoothed it out, but hopefully we'll never see it, and I don't care if we do. I'm trying to patch a trunk here, save what we do have. It wasn't much, but I like it. I think it looks a whole lot better, and I didn't have to use Ron's sucky idea to put cardboard underneath this thing. Well, it's the next day, and the temperatures are in the 60s, and I am not complaining one bit. It enabled me to go ahead and finally get these things completely painted. I opened up a new can of this Krylon paint in order to do it. I get so fed up with Krylon lids. The plastic tops, they have that squeeze thing. You're supposed to squeeze the top and lift it off. It never works. I had to smash this thing to pieces to get the lid off. I'm not happy about Krylon paint. They really need to do something different with their lids. Anyway, we'll let this dry for a while, and maybe, I don't know, maybe I can get the front part of the spring back up. We'll see. Well, we might as well take advantage of our waiting while the other paint dries and go ahead and hit this tank filler tube cover. I washed it off. It needed a little bit of additional paint put on it. It had quite a few scuff marks from being shipped, plus me jostling it around, you know, trying to make it fit and stuff like that. So we'll get this real good. I bought all the new screws today to go ahead and put it in. We probably won't get around to that until the next video, but I've been meaning to get that done. I haven't done it. I got a lot of other things, you know, going on. Typical life, you know, that's all. Stuff gets in the way, no problem. Well, the other spring is up finally. Got that taken care of. And I did it without ripping out any stitches, so I guess the doctor will be happy, but it was quite a strain. Matter of fact, it kind of hurts right now. I better cool it. I didn't torque it. I'll have to torque. I'm talking about the bracket bolts, you know, to the side of the body. I didn't torque those in, but we will. We'll get all that. But right now, I decided to pull out one of these rubber pads that I bought, you know, that fits on top of the spring. One goes on top, one goes on the bottom. They leave the bolt sticking way up, so it'll go through that center hole right there. You can see the bolt sticking way up on the one over there. Okay, right up there. They also leave one at the bottom too, so it goes through the hole. Let's back her up. Now let's see if my nice new shiny painted and cleaned and de-rusted bracket will fit. That round rubber area right there has to fit in this hole right here. If it's too tight, we're going to have a problem. Let me see here. Oh, let me darn. Fits like a glove. How about that? All right. And last but not least, we'll go ahead and close out this video. This is what progress has been made with the dashpot. Looks a whole lot better. And I've got the bracket and the nut that holds it to the bracket. Been soaking in here for a couple days. Let me go ahead and take the top off. Well, it must have done something. It's pretty brown. Well, there she is, all back together. No rust at all. Maybe a little pitting here and there, but there's not much I can do about that. I'll probably tape off this spring area here and hit it with a coat of clear. I don't want any, you know, paint to get down in there where the plunger is here. And that'll pretty much wrap that up. After we get it coated, it should protect it for a while anyway. Next time, I think what we'll do is try to get the axle housing back on top of the springs. Get the U-bolts on and get it, you know, bolted down. We'll see what happens. And, you know, which shouldn't really be that much of a job. And if we're lucky and the temperature holds out, I think we might be able to start, you know, maybe get that yoke and that nut off of the differential, so we could replace that pinion seal. That's a little more, you know, involved than you would think. You know, it's not just a matter of taking the nut off and blah, 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 and bing, 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 it's over and done with. There's a few things you need to know about, and I'm going to educate those who don't know. And those who do know, don't worry about it. Just go off and watch some other video next time, that is. So anyway, until then, this is John.